Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person. Home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty high-o silver, the Lone Ranger.
Yes, indeed, Michael Savage. What you're listening to is the radio show, The Lone Ranger, that got me into radio. Welcome to the program. And for the first few minutes of the show today, I'm going to indulge myself, and I hope you'll take the ride with me, because this type of day comes along only once in a career, and I've won the National Radio Hall of Fame contest or award, however you want to put it, and it is really the capstone of my professional life. And the first thing I have to do is thank all of you who texted my name and nominated me. Now, some of you are confused thinking that I promoted it and no one else did. It's the way it worked with the spoken word category. Everyone who was running did that. So let's put that aside. And the overwhelming majority of you who love the show went out of your way to do it. So just a few little things to note. The National Radio Hall of Fame actually exists in Chicago, and they have different categories of winners. And if you look backwards in history, some of the great names in radio are in that Hall of Fame and got this award. Orson Welles, Walter Winchell. So I consider myself to be entered amongst giants with this award. And I promised you, the listeners, that if you voted for me, and I won, which I did, that when I go to Chicago, God willing, to receive that award in November, and I give my small speech, as everyone who wins does, I will thank you with the message, Borders, Language, and Culture. Why am I doing it? Why would I mention that at the National Radio Hall of Fame dinner? Because, well, let me read it to you. Michael Savage, the host of the nationally syndicated, it's on the Drudge Report right now, link from WND. It's been up since the morning. It's gotten enormous response. I got to tell you something, that a sidetrack. So I have a small Facebook presence. Well, since I posted it, I've had 141,940 people go on to say various things. Most of them are sane and say nice things. 150,000 now. Borders, Language, Culture, congratulations. The fact of the matter is, I have perhaps the most proactive, the most reactive audience in the radio business right now. How do I know that? I know it because I was running against a guy who is a giant in the business, Sean Hannity, and I congratulated him in the article, by the way. He has more stations, but apparently my listeners are more reactive, more responsive than anyone else is in the business. And I want to thank you for that. And I'm not going to ask you why. We can figure that out ourselves. Savage said he will be inducted November 17th to the ceremony in Chicago in the category of spoken word on-air personality. He said, to me, this is the capstone of my life. All my writing, all my speaking, this is it. This year, the National Radio Hall of Fame gave listeners a direct voice in selecting the inductees and allowing them to vote via text. The other nominees in this category were Sean Hannity, Diane Rehm, and Mike Francisca. Savage noted that he had promised his listeners that if he won, he would go to Chicago, and during my 5-minute speech, I would thank them for responding to my message of Borders, Language, and Culture. I promised them that that would be said for one reason, because the speech will be put into the annals of radio history. And then in years to come, people will look back and say, who was this guy, Michael Savage? I know nothing about him. But his message was Borders, Language, and Culture during a period of great turmoil in American history. Notably, they write, Savage's message of Borders, Language, and Culture has been a fixture in the success of Donald Trump, by the way, who's expected on the show this week, Thursday, who is expected officially to become the Republican Party's nominee for president next week in Cleveland. Savage was profiled recently by Salon magazine, which dubbed him the godfather of Trump mania. Contemplating the significance of the honor, Savage said it was as if I'm being inducted with Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio. When you consider some of the recipients in the golden age days of radio, Orson Welles, Walter Winchell, and others, I'm in the category of giants, he said. Savage said that with all the opposition and obstacles he's faced over the years, it's somewhat of a miracle that he won. I truly believe, as Rocky Graziano said, somebody up there likes me, because there's no explanation to me having survived all these years in radio. And then he go on to a little bit more. And then Savage compliments his competitor, Hannity, by saying, I admire the strength of his convictions and his message and how hard he works, TV and radio. I don't know how he does it, Savage said. Noting he's more than 20 years older than Hannity, Savage said Hannity and others in the talk radio industry who don't even like me or my politics should take their hat off to me. They should say, you know what? This guy's an inspiration to all of us for what he's overcome. It should inspire all of us to keep fighting for what they believe in. It's that simple. They don't have to like my politics to admire my immigrant drive. That's what it comes down to. I have a little bit of the push card inside my soul. Savage's show is syndicated across the U.S. by Cumulus Media in more than 200 markets, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to go into the rest of it. You can read it yourself. So I want to go back for a minute and give you a preview of the speech I'm going to give in, you want me to say black again? I'm not going to say black once today, okay? I don't care anymore. I don't care. If we lived in a legitimate country, they would have been arrested for rioting and killing police. There's such a thing as crossing state lines to cause a riot. And when 5 cops die and the next day the vermin in America, in the media, are talking about the same old stories and ignoring the dead cops, let me tell you something, the blood rises in my head. My veins explode in my face. So I'm not saying the word black once today. Okay, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Go to Wolf Blitzer for that. Let him lick the boots of all of the gangsters in the streets. So let me go back to what I want to do. I'm going to give you a preview of what I'm going to say at my speech in November. In my head, I started to write it as I was sleeping before a battery ran down on what do you call those things over your head in a bedroom? A fire, a smoke alarm? Kept me up all the night. What a story that is. 2 nights in a row. Chirp, 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 chirp. Teddy's looking at me. Chirp, chirp, chirp. So, logically you go up, you put in the 9-volt, and it still doesn't stop. I go in all the bedrooms after 10 minutes of not being able to sleep. An hour. I jumped out of bed trying to ignore it. It's not going to bother me. I'm not worried about it. I can sleep through this. Chirp, 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 chirp. I couldn't sleep, so I jumped up at 12:15, disturbed my dog, got a stool, one of the step ladders, jumped up, ripped them out of the ceiling with the wires hanging. I ripped them out and threw them in the garden. I couldn't take it. I wanted to go to sleep to be on the air today. I laid down. I pulled a cover over me, get everything set again, put the pillow under my head. Chirp, chirp. This is impossible. It can't be going on. There are no smoke alarms in the ceiling around me. Chirp, chirp, chirp. I was going nuts. So I had to walk around the house and sleep in another bedroom, locking the door. And I get up in the morning and it's still chirping, intermittently. So I call a guy I know who's a gardener and I say, hey, could you come over? I'm going nuts from this. Guess what it turned out to be? An old smoke alarm had been thrown in the bottom of a bag in my closet underneath towels, and the battery ran down and was chirping. At least I'm not crazy, okay? That's how I test my sanity every once in a while. I wonder if Obama would have anybody look for a smoke alarm chirping away in a closet. Where was I when I got so rudely interrupted? So, I was trying to sleep, fell asleep, and I in my dream state, I thought about the speech I'm going to give in November. This is going to be after the election, no less. Can you imagine if Hillary's president or Trump is president? God only knows what's going to be by the time the speech is given. I don't know if the streets will even be available unless the wonderful protesters burn cities to the ground without being stopped by the genius who runs the Department of Homeland Security. Maybe he should march with them. But nevertheless, I'm going to give a speech, and I'm going to start by thanking my mother, may she rest in heaven, because I remember how I got into radio. You know how I got into radio? Let me tell you. First of all, I'm one of the only people in talk radio who actually grew up on radio. I grew up as a little boy before there was television. Did you know that? It's hard to believe. Yeah, it was all radio. So I remember my father would be smoking his Philip Morris on the couch and wherever we lived, smoking away. I loved that secondhand smoke. I got to tell you, it was wonderful. I was getting just high off it. And we'd be listening to the radio. And the shows that we listened to were things such as the Green Hornet. Robert, would you play the Green Hornet so people who know nothing about radio will understand what I'm talking about?
The Green Hornet. He hunts the biggest of all game, public enemies that even the G-men cannot reach. The Green Hornet.
Oh, you got the picture. All right. So I listened to this, and I love the sound effects. A foghorn, and you were on the waterfront. I remember my father would say to me, he says, I like radio better than I like movies. And I said, why, Dad? He said, because you have to use your imagination to picture, listen to what he said, to picture what is being said on the radio? Well, I learned to use my imagination to picture what was being presented on the radio, right? So the foghorn, I was down on the waterfront. A horse's hoof running, I saw the horse. Thunder, I saw the... Thanks, Robert, that's good. These guys are good. They're silk smooth. Old Robert Borowski is silk smooth on the organ. And then, of course, as the years went on, my mother took me and my friend to Radio City Music Hall, I believe the NBC building, actually. I think it was one and the same, in Manhattan. And we schlep in from Queens, buses, trains, you know. And she treated us in the city. We go into the RCA building, and we go upstairs. It was so, like, high class for me to see marble floors in the elevator. And, you know, intimidated the kid in the skyscraper coming in. So we go up there, and we go behind the scenes of a radio broadcast, and the sound effects guy did things that I couldn't believe were done. I had no idea. So he said, well, this is how we make thunder. And he took a thing, right, and he hit a big sheet of metal, and it sounded like thunder. And I sat there awestruck. I couldn't believe that a sound effects man could make thunder without there being thunder. And then he really threw me for a loop. He made the sound with two hollow shells on a wooden platform of a horse running down somewhere. You have a horse's hooves, Robert, by any chance? Clopping along. If you don't, it's okay. Right. And I was just awestruck by the fact that you could make it sound like a horse, but there was no horse. So it turns out that the Lone Ranger had no horse. He was a horseless cowboy, very much like Obama's a horseless president. There's nothing under Obama except the golf club. In other words, it's all fake. It's Capricorn 1. But I came to love the sound effects that were created in that, I think the NBC building, or I don't remember where it was, way up there. And that's how I became fascinated with the idea of radio. And let me tell you something. What I try to do on this show every day, although it's highly political, sometimes I wander into other things, and most people say, you know what, I like the other things better than I like the politics, because I can get the politics, and the world is so screwed up. Can you do the other things? Like, could you tell us about the smoke alarm that kept you awake? Or the Fuji heater? Well, okay, that's, you know, the side note. Don't mix up the frame from the set. But the fact of the matter is, we need this theater of the mind called radio to survive in times like this. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And please never forget the following. Talk radio, although it is the spoken word, must remember its origins, which are in entertainment. Let me repeat that again. The origins of this medium that I am in is entertainment. And if you forget that and you just become a shrill, shrieking guy who's screaming day and night, and believe me, I've wandered into those areas myself over the years, but I rarely sustain it for a long period of time. If that's all you become, you're going to drive audiences away in larger numbers than you'll attract them, because people need some lightness of the mind and lightness of the being. So again, I want to thank you for listening. When I come back, I can take some of your calls if you want to make them. We'll have one more little segment of me indulging myself on winning my induction into the National Radio Hall of Fame. It's a big deal for me. Think about this. If you're a boxer and you were inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, or if you're a baseball player and you're inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, you name the list, or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, isn't it a big deal to those people? So why should I not tell you what is true for me, as it should be true for everyone in the business? And I want to say again, thank you very much to my loyal listeners of the Savage Nation who heard the message loud and clear of borders, language, culture.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
There's another song that stuck with me. I think this was television, though, the Texaco Hour, where there was a little overlap with television and radio. You know, the pure radio stuff would be the Green Hornet. And what was the other one, Robert, that I pulled today? I don't remember. My mind is not on it, really. That's Chevrolet. The Doris Day. I don't remember her name, but she was, I wanted a Chevrolet because of it. I don't have one. I have a Dodge Challenger. A Dodge, whatever. Hellcat. Over 60, it shimmies. Took it in 3 times now for alignment. They said they don't know what's wrong with it. All right, very good. It goes 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds, so you get there pretty quick to get the shimmy going. You know, I got some really nice emails from friends and people in the business who consider me, I don't know, friends and nice to me. I got to tell you something that you should remember the rest of your life. Just as a guy, one guy to the other, someone who's been around the block, you can tell who your friends are when you have good news. See, when you have bad news, you'll hear from people who hate you saying, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that you have cancer. Meanwhile, they're sticking the knife in you. See what I'm saying? See who calls you or emails you in this day and age when you have good news. I just got a beautiful email from the team at KSFO in my hometown of San Francisco from the program director. I don't have to read his name. I don't think he wants that. And he says, I think I can speak for everyone at Cumulus KSFO in offering my heartfelt congratulations on this lifetime achievement with your induction to the National Radio Hall of Fame. This honor is well-deserved and exemplifies the special talent that you are. We are proud to have you anchoring the middle of our day in San Francisco on KSFO, 560 KSFO. Now that, there's a word for it in many languages. All I want to say is thank you. So you can tell who your friends are when you have good news. You know what I'm saying? Look, when I come back, we'll do a lot of stuff, including news, but I won't say the word black today, not once. I'm sure you'll hear it before and after me.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
So now here's some bad news. A policeman was shot outside a Michigan courthouse. Do I have to inspect the story and get agitated over it? Let's run down the list of people I do not suspect shot the policeman. Let's say a nun, an Irish nun. No, let's put an X through her. Hasidic rabbi. No, not him. So what do you want to do, fill in the blank? That we have a civil war going on in America, that we all know it except Jay Johnson and Barack Obama? Or did they cause it, and are they capitalizing on it by keeping the pot stirred and people against each other, huh? What kind of country is this that we have such individuals that won't step in and stop these people from killing the police? French police boss says migrant sex assaults could trigger a civil war. It's about time. It's about time people stood up to the animals they're bringing into France. What do you expect to happen? You bring in 15th century animals. What do you think's going to happen? But see, I didn't want to go there. It has to happen. I would have had 20 minutes without agita. 20 minutes without agita. Unbelievable. What a business I'm in. It can't be that bad for your health when you think about it. When I started in this business, I got to tell you, I was in the health food business for years. A writer, a researcher, a traveler looking for cures. I mean, that's what I did. I researched and wrote for years on nutrition, on vitamins and herbs. And I was a leader in that field. And when I went into radio, most men were retiring at that point. Many men would retire at that age. And I decided I wanted this so badly, to be in radio. And through very hard work and perseverance, I broke through little by little, little by little, little by little. But the point is, here we are. But when I started, and it's 22 years, it's hard to believe, I was afraid that I would die on the air. I still could, God forbid. But, I mean, at that time, because of the stress of radio and the horrible stories that I was having to deal with, and we're talking 94. I'll never forget it. I had been on a very restricted diet before radio. I weighed maybe 30 pounds less than I do now. No, I did. I was in better shape because I watched myself more. I didn't have the stress that I do now. Then I started in radio, and I'm knocking down garbage. I mean, I tried my best, but I go to a greasy Chinese joint near the studio there at KSFO KGO. It's still there. And I would say to myself, what are you eating the meat pie for? You haven't eaten meat like this in 30 years, but it tasted so good, you could almost faint as you bit into the fried jacket. And I said, all right, I can't take it anymore. I'm like an opera singer, and I got to put coal down into the burner. I can't just get up there like Mr. Thin. I'm not trying to show my abs on the air. I'm trying to show my soul on the air. It's different than showing your abs or your derriere. So the thing is, I needed a lot of food. All right, so I still bicycle every day. I try my best, but the thing is, I'm still here. Oh, am I saturated with vitamins, though? I mean, don't fool yourself. This is not by accident. If I ever told you my regimen, you wouldn't be surprised because I've written about it. I am rolling. I'm saturated with certain nutrients all day long. from morning till night, fanatically megadosing on vitamins. But I know what I'm doing. Not just any, not every, certain. And so far, I'm still in the radio business, and I haven't given up. And believe me, I want to say this to you. I had many opportunities to throw in the microphone and walk away. Just throw a towel over the mic and say enough is enough of the crap I put up with and the rejection and the hatred and living with my head always spinning around because the animals will send me hate mail, which I get once in a while. Who would want to live like this? Well, that's the business that I chose. That's the price of freedom. That is the price of freedom of speech. It's that simple. And you all have to learn that because it's coming to your own brain very soon. You're not going to have a country unless you stand up to these thugs who disguise themselves as some kind of grievance committee. There's no grievance committee. These are radical revolutionaries who want to take over the country and kill you or put you in slavery. Make no mistake about who they are. Don't fall for this crap. These are drug gangs attacking police with moronic marchers attached to them who think that they're doing something good here for them, the moron children. The next they'll be marching with ISIS. Make no mistake about it, though. This is a revolution right in front of your eyes. It was fomented by that snake in the White House, and they love what's going on. The snake gave a speech over the weekend in Poland. It was enough to make you want to break the television set. The snake is either living in another universe or knows that everything he says is full of it, like Hillary. Which politician can you trust? See, he blew the reverie already, the dead cop. You know, I was looking at, what was I going to do now? Wait, I want to stick to the reverie on the National Radio Hall of Fame Award for a minute. So I got to tell you something now. You know that I'm a God-fearing man because I've told you that. Am I super religious? No, I'm not. Do I go to a house of worship? Not really. I have from time to time, and maybe I'll go again. But the point is, I know somebody's up there. It's that simple. How do I know? It's my business how I know. You decide for yourself what you believe in. I don't care if you believe in your shoe. I don't care if you see Jesus in a raindrop or you actually know Jesus. It doesn't matter to me. God bless you if you believe in God. I'm saying to you, I do, but I also believe in other modalities of wisdom or guidance, if you want to put it to you that way. This is why, as a searcher, I spent many, many years in the South Pacific and some of the most remote islands on Earth. And in those years, I would consult with, you want to call them witch doctors, there's no such thing. I would say readers who could read into the other world, and there are many other worlds. Many other worlds, and some people have the gift or are put here to be able to see those other worlds and tell us about them. And I always sought those people out, okay, because there's something more than the logical mind. So I've tried to use some of this other stuff to guide me. And remember I had on this show a palm reader named Vernon Mahalal. Remember I had him on? Do you remember what he said? I found his email. I retrieved it. He sent it to me in May. I couldn't believe it. I reread it when I heard that I won this award. Let me read you a few paragraphs. Hi, Michael. This is just from reading my palm. He's known me for years, and we never met. He said, I actually see huge changes coming up for you as early as this November. By the way, November is when I get the award and I'm inducted into the Hall of Fame. These changes will remain in effect up until the end of 2017 and continue in the coming years. If you felt like a lone wolf on the tundra in your career with little respect or recognition from your media peers, except from your devoted listening audience, this will all soon change. In November of 2016, the beginning of a very powerful Pluto-Saturn transit will take place, which will last the entire year and well into 2017. During this time period, you'll receive immense support from others. Michael, I call this your return on your investments year. It is your harvest year. It is a year of status, respect, and prestige. It will be a very dynamic year with increased recognition, that which will be bolstered by other respected individuals in other areas of media. That's interesting. Listen to this. For instance, it could take the form of a film about you or a biography/film. I see a new level of recognition for you from a wider public audience. You will have to make many big or important decisions in 2017. Listen to this one. Requiring you to negotiate boldly in order to receive what you want. You will be dealing with individuals who are respected and influential in their field of media. Michael, this will not be a quiet and relaxed year, but a very active and busy one. Having said this, during this time, you'll find yourself with a new level of renown, of a very different type of which you have not yet seen. This is what I mean by your harvest year. You will be reaping the rewards of all your years of hard work in radio. Come on. This is pretty awesome. Now, wait, here's the last paragraph. A bigger spotlight will be on you, and you will be perceived as a crusader and innovator by a wider audience. You could even be the face of a new crusade. At the same time, you will feel very independent this year and very much in the driver's seat. In 2017, your star will burn even brighter. Call me if you have any questions. My best, Vernon Mahalal. Okay, so there it is. I don't know of a priest. I don't know of a rabbi who could have told me that. See what I'm getting at? There are many ways to approach the truth. That's what I'm trying to say to you. I don't think you need to limit yourself. Now, many people will take offense. I get it. It's considered witchcraft to devout Christians and Jews. I can't help you if that's the way you see the world. I think you can be a devout Christian and a devout Jew and also understand and also respect that there are other ways to look into and see the universe and the world and your world and who you are. Many other ways. Now, having said that, my friends, I'm looking at what's going on in this country right now, and I would say I'm sickened, but I'm not surprised. I've been predicting that this terrorism from domestic terrorist groups would emerge in the last few months of Obama's reign of terror. How many months have I told you now? How many months have I told you now? Watch out for the last months of his regime. I warned you that around August, came a month sooner. Didn't I warn you that from August on, all hell would break loose in this country? When this monster and his machine unleashed the mobs on the streets? I told you this would happen. So now you're asking me, Big Shot, what's happening next? You know what? I don't want to tell you. How's that? I don't want to tell you what's happening next. Just live through it. Just live through it. The world is in upheaval. Obama has destroyed the entire world. You know, one man can destroy a world and one man can make a world. This man is so destructive. He has upset the entire world. I got to give it to him. He's so powerful. His influence is so great. He's wrecked the entire world with his insanity. If he'd only wake up to the fact that he has this power and that he should be using it for the good of mankind, not for the disruption of mankind, mankind would be a lot better off. Write that down. See if you can take that apart. So there are other things I want to do in this show, in this hour. It's all tied into this. And, you know, I go around, I see the police. I want to go up to them and say thank you to them. I don't do it. I don't do it. They're all alone. They're all alone. And someone's got to do something for them. I have a sponsor, Swiss America, of the gold company. You know who he is. He's a great guy, Craig Smith. He sent me an email on Friday, and he said he sent Chick-fil-A dinners or something to all of the local precincts in his area on Friday in solidarity with them. You know what? That's a very good idea for everyone listening to this show. Why don't you just get some food? I don't mean bring it in. Send orders in to all your local police stations tomorrow for lunch. What's wrong with that idea? Spend a little money and show them that they're loved by the community and that the vermin in the streets are not your friends and you have no sympathy for them. That there are a small percentage of rabid animals supported by the communist movement in this country and that you're on the side of the thin blue line. Why don't you do that? I'll be back.
Michael, this is Justin Whitmire, Vice President, Market Manager for KSFO in San Francisco. On behalf of everybody here at KSFO and the Cumulus Radio family, congratulations on being named to the National Radio Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I told you can tell who your friends are when you have good news. Well, here's some bad news. I don't even want to go here. 3 dead in shooting at a courthouse. I can't even say it. My throat's closing up. We're in a slow civil war because of the monster in the White House. He had many opportunities to tell them to put their weapons down and stop it, but he didn't. Instead, he encouraged them. Lynch, that other genius, that legal genius that they put into the Attorney General's office, can't fit into her own shoes, let alone the shoes of her job, had the nerve to give a speech after 5 cops were executed and have the nerve to tell the marchers not to give up. What side of the law is she on? She's not on the side of the law. She's against the law, isn't she? It's astounding. You're watching people who are overtly against the law, acting like they're for the law when they're the top law people, The whole government's been taken over by a gang. Only they're so silk smooth in their revolutionary garb that you don't even recognize what's going on in front of your own eyes. How is this going to end? Let's see. This is only, it's only July. And the Republican convention's coming up next week, isn't it? In Cleveland, isn't it, Robert? I wonder if the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security will make certain that Americans have the right to free assembly and they're not interrupted by violent gangs who are using the false mantle of victimhood to upset anything they want to upset. What's next? They break into your house and say, you owe it to me? Why not? Why not? Why not just take all your possessions? Why not take your wife away and say you owe it to me? When you going to put up with that too? That's the country you're living in. Total breakdown of the social order. You know, in England, there's going to be a new prime minister this May. It's interesting this morning on the Drudge Report when I woke up and I saw the story about me getting the National Radio Hall of Fame award because it was written by WND. Right underneath that was a story about UK May Day, which is an interesting connection of things. The new leader of Britain is a woman named Theresa May, and she's supposedly a conservative. Apparently, Mr. Drudge knows who she is because someone wrote this. This happens on the day, meaning I win the award, announce the award is announced. Someone writes, Savage wins the award on the day that Theresa May, who as UK Home Secretary continued the Savage ban, became a cinch to be the next UK PM. In fact, Drudge did his ironic drudge the position of these two news stories. Very smart. Someone saw that. So don't fool yourself and think that the conservatives are taking over England. The liberals are still in control of England. She's as conservative. She's not a conservative, okay? She's part of the established order there. Like Cameron the fraud, the chameleon, came in, the Mr. Conservative, he flooded the country with illegal aliens. TB, violence, crime, murder, didn't matter to him. Didn't matter to him. All these people are liars and thieves. I don't know what's wrong with them. Now in Vermont, they're bringing them in with tuberculosis, one after the other. And the so-called state health director, some wretched female of the lowest order, a state epidemiologist, says she's not concerned with bringing in people with active tuberculosis. And another time she'd be put in prison. They go and throw her in jail for violating her oath of office. But there are no oaths and there are no offices anymore. There are only gangs who put gangsters in charge of everything, and we the people are stuck. Are we really stuck? They haven't seen from the people yet. Mark my words, we'll be the biggest disruptors of all when we finally decide to disrupt.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
You know, in its heyday, this country was so blessed with greatness on all levels, from sports figures who were inspirations to the young instead of degenerate junkies that we have today, gangbangers that we have today, to entertainers like Frank Sinatra, who inspired people with their amazing grit and their tremendous delivery and their ability to overcome poverty and rise to the top without resorting to becoming animals along the way. We were really inspired by political leaders and business leaders who gave back to America, not the buccaneers that we have in Facebook and Google and people like that who take everything they can get and stick it up their snouts and don't give anything back to the country. What a country this was when we had it, a country that people believed in. I don't know if we can ever have those days back, but let me tell you something. I traverse several different worlds. I'm an immigrant son, so I have one foot in the old world, one foot in the new world. I have one foot in a pre-television world. I'm trying to tell you that. I'm one of the only people in radio who actually grew up in radio. I told you that story the first hour. Sitting in my father's lap, he'd smoke the Philip Morris, read the paper, and we listened to radio theater like the Green Hornet. So I learned what radio was virtually from childhood, not from infancy, but from childhood. I grew up on radio. And here we are living in the meltdown of a society. I can point my finger, and you could point your finger as well. But ultimately, it's only we, the people, who can save this country. I don't care what Wolf Blitzer does. To me, they're just flies on an outhouse wall as far as I'm concerned. It's we, the people, who have to take our country back. We can't let the gangs take this country over. And that means supporting the police because we have nothing left. We've lost the federal government. The federales are on the side of the gangs. It's we, the people, and the police. That's all we've got left. And this creature in the White House is trying his best to disarm the police and replace them with a federal police force, which, by the way, I warned you about 5 books ago. I warned you about a lot of things. What good did it do, you or me? It's only gotten worse. So I can't blame myself for that, nor should you blame yourself for that. Sometimes the forces are so great against decency that there's almost no way to overcome it, and you have to just live through it. You know, I wrote a little sentence here when I was banned from entering England, and what's ironic about it is that the day that this is announced on the Drudge Report, the award, right under is the article about Theresa May, who's going to become the new Prime Minister of England, and they're saying, oh, wow, oh, she's a conservative. She's going to straighten things out. When she was UK Home Secretary, she continued the ban on me, by the way. And I looked up the book that I did at the time called Banned in Britain, Beating the Liberal Blacklist, because I am the only member of the American media still on a blacklist, by the way. Despite all of the would-be wise guys who pretend that they're the Lone Ranger, none of them are actually on any blacklists but I. I am not only banned in Britain, I am banned on Fox News. And let me say something else. Here's an award like this, comes along once in a lifetime. Anyone else in radio who would have gotten it would have been starring on the Bill O'Reilly show, but they have such a mean spirit on that network that they can't even put down their jealousy for even 5 seconds and show the people that they're bigger than their own egos. So I'm looking at the book, Banned in Britain, and I see some chapter heads that I want to share with you that will ring a bell with you. Savage strikes back. Savage calls on Hillary. Hillary, my letter to the Secretary of State. The legal letters and the secret emails. Did you know about secret emails? I was writing about them back in 2000 and whenever this happened. What happened to me? Do I have a right to be shocked? Talk radio and the nature of free speech. From Churchill to the charlatans. Chapter 3. Why Savage was targeted. What globalism stands for. I was the first media target of globalism in the United States of America. Okay, so I'm playing my way. What do you think? It's an accident? Savage on the enemy of globalism. European decadence unable to tolerate a critical American. How I am being used as a target. Next, Chapter 4, Big Sis is amiss. Remember the phrase Big Sis? Big Sis is amiss. I talked about fusion centers. I then went down to America and the world react to the attack on Savage. This is an interesting statement. I get by with a little help from my enemies, is what it's very cute. It's very cute. The real liberals support Savage. Fox fumbles. Listeners rally. The loyal Savage bloggers. Savage keeps the faith, etc. I can go on. Okay, then you'll say you're being too self-indulgent. Okay, so I'm too self-indulgent. Chapter 8, the fight goes on. The Islamo-fascists at home and abroad. Toothless in North Korea. See, what I'm trying to get at with you is this didn't start with Barry from Honolulu. It started with Bill Clinton. George Bush was only an interim breather between the Marxism that has engulfed this nation. And it was Bill Clinton who initiated it. Remember, we said that he was like Caligula, an all-powerful emperor who literally destroyed in his own time, almost destroyed the entire nation. He certainly destroyed the ethics and the morals of the nation. I don't have to go into the dirty jokes, but I know for a fact that because of what Bill Clinton did and Hillary Clinton let him do and let him get away with, instead of walking away from him and turning on him and saying he's a piece of garbage and I'll have nothing to do with him, she enabled him. And what that did was this. When he said oral sex is not sex, do you know what that did to our children? I know for a fact that it caused an epidemic of sexual license that you've never seen before in the history of the world. I happen to know it for a fact. I can prove it to you because I heard from people in Ireland, which before that time was one of the most Catholic, I don't know how the word should, almost purist in their morals of all nations. After this liar got up there and said, I did not have sex with that woman, and said it was oral sex was not sex. There was an epidemic of oral sex amongst the young. Did you know that? So you can laugh all you want and say, oh, that's great. That's great. I wish I could get some. You want to be one of those dirtbags? Go ahead. Make my day. But that's what he did. And she stood by and said nothing. Why would anyone want 8 more years of this dirt? I don't know. I have no idea why. So I don't want to go into a political thing here, but I'm just telling you how this all fits together. Now, I've taken one call yet, an hour, 15 minutes, no, on this wonderful day when this announcement's being made. What a day it is, with people still being murdered in courthouses. And Mr. Poland is still over there. Jay Johnson of Homeland Security is doing everything he can to protect you. Sure he is. A friend of mine sent this to me the other day when I sent him the announcement. He said, you will be called upon to celebrate some good news. I thought that was amazing. And he said, for my Chinese lunch today, it was a fortune cookie statement. To him, it said, you will be called upon to celebrate some good news. One of my friends. So find out who your friends are and who decent people are when good things happen to you. As I said to you, when bad things happen to you, you will hear from your enemies as well as from your friends, because they'll be gloating over your sickness or your demise. And then you're going to find out when good things happen to you if people have any dignity, whether they can get above their own pettiness and pick up a few strokes of a key and say congratulations. So believe me, these are very trying times for all of us. Even in the good times, they're trying times. And just because I'm celebrating with you today doesn't mean I don't see what's going on in the world, but we all need a hiatus from it for a few minutes. It's been one of the worst weeks in American history. The deaths of those cops was bad enough, but the way the vermin in the media immediately obliterated it by covering the false grievances of the murderers and their cohorts got me sicker than you could imagine. It almost made me explode in the street at people driving around with Hillary or Obama bumper stickers. And I'm a very reserved man off the air. And let me tell you something else. As a public figure, I never, ever, ever say a word to a stranger. Ever. But I did that day. The day after the police shootings, I almost got into something with someone in a car. I was walking through a little town, and an old white man, one of those old white men that I detest more than anything you could ever imagine, is driving around with all of the horrible left-wing bumper stickers all over his car. You know the kind of car I'm talking about. An old Prius that's falling apart. You know the type, the civil servant or retired professor commie type. It went from Obama to Jerry Brown to Barbara Boxer to Dianne Feinstein to This Life Matters, and every bumper sticker you could imagine. I couldn't control myself. He was at a stoplight, and I was walking. He didn't know who I was. I screamed at him a lot of things, and he drove away as quickly as he could. And if I'm breaking out of my reserve, you can imagine what's happening to people who don't have the outlet I have. This country is on the verge of a national catastrophe, and only that shyster in the White House can stop it. But I don't think he will. I think I'll pause and be back in a minute on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth and financial future. Call 1-800-289-2646. Take a vacation. You can't get away for a minute in this business. I mean, summertime, a normal person takes a few days off. I want to go somewhere. I remember normal people relax during the summer. I open up the tabloids when I'm reading an article. I usually like The Sun in England. I see a news article about what's going on. I go to the right column. You see the starlets and this. I look at them. I really do. I enjoy looking at them cavorting for whatever the reason. So there's Sylvester Stallone and his wife and his 3 daughters in the Mediterranean on a chartered vessel. I see him marching around in Nice and Cannes and this and that and the yacht and this and that. So I said, why don't I go to the Mediterranean? The answer is because I can't. Not only do I can't get away from the radio for a minute. That's number one. But number 2, I swear to God, I actually was invited for that very week to be on a yacht in the Mediterranean. I can't go. Why? I go crazy. What am I going to do on a boat? All you do is eat and drink. So what's the point of going? As it is here, I'm trying not to eat and drink. So now picture yourself on a yacht where you have almost nothing else to do. But okay, other people do other things. I get it. They go on water skis. I hate it. They go on that machine that makes too much noise. Ski-doo. I don't like it particularly because I don't like noise. That's number 2. Number 3, they snorkel. Terrific, but my ears can't take it. I don't snorkel. I'm not joking in a way because there's nothing for me to do on a yacht. This is a concept that I can't understand. And I'm a boater, by the way. I had my own boat, well, a big boat until a few years ago. I had a 62-foot Grand Banks that I enjoyed very much, but it wasn't a yacht in the sense that I go away for weeks at a time. I can't take it. I don't know how people enjoy it, and some do. Some very intelligent people, they go to a friend's yacht, and they spend a week, and they have famous people with dinners, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. Whoever yacht it is the king. And then let's say they have 10 guests on. Then they sit them at the table according to their status in the entertainment, or let's say whatever the industry is, right? So depending on where you get put, you know your relative pecking order, where you are in the pecking order. So could you imagine if you're invited on a yacht and it's not a family thing and you're not the highest on the pecking order, how you're going to feel 6th down? Okay, that's number 1. But that's not the reason I didn't go. It's the eating, the drinking, the walking around. In an age of terror, I want to go to the Mediterranean where ISIS are running around wanting to kill Europeans. I don't understand that part of it. How much longer can this world go on as we know it? With the pressure we're under from the gangsters inside this country, inside the government, and inside the streets. And then out in the bigger world with the Islamo-fascist gangsters, how much longer can civilization survive with these pressures, I wonder? I wonder about it every day. I see little children selling lemonade in the white suburbs, and I scratch my head at who their parents are. On the one hand, I feel like saying what idiots these parents are to let their children sit in the street, little girls in bikinis selling lemonade. And what kind of father and mother would let the children do this? On the other hand, I say, well, maybe the parents are innocent themselves, and they want to believe that it's 1950 and there's still Norman Rockwell paintings on the cover of Life magazine, that everything's just going to go along the way it did forever. Just nice and smooth. Life's going to be perfect for their children. The world has already changed for their children. And they ought to get their children ready for the world that their children are going to grow up into. That's all I can tell you. They ought to make them real as fast as possible. I don't mean to have to beat them up and scare them mentally. They better tell their children what's waiting for them. Because it's not going to be the world that they inherited, let me tell you. It's a whole different universe. And so you blame this, no, don't blame anybody. It's up to the parents to teach the children the world they're living in. So what is the show about today when you add it up? Am I doing the news? No. What am I doing? I have such wonderful news to deal with. I can't deal with it. The Dallas police chief who says we're asking cops to do too much in this country is 1,000% right. That's why the police are stretched. No, don't play that. No, I don't want to hear Frank Sinatra right now. Anyway, I'm going to do the news when I get around to it, maybe tomorrow. It's so bad out there. I needed a breather. Don't you need a breather? Don't you want a little reminiscence about the early days of radio, a different time in America when your mother could walk to the corner for a loaf of bread without being molested by a gang?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
We must maintain law and order at the highest level, or we will cease to have a country. 100%. We will cease to have a country. I am the law and order candidate.
2 weeks ago, I'm going to say it in passing, I said if Donald was smart, if his handlers are listening, he should declare himself the law and order candidate. Raise your hand if you remember that in this show. Remember I said that years ago we had a law and order candidate and he won by a land mile. I said Donald Trump is the law and order candidate and he should declare himself as such, and I'm glad he just did. I was told he might be on this Thursday. I hope so. If not, I'm still going to vote for him. It's that simple. If he's on, he's on. I hope so. 855-400-7282 is the phone number. MichaelSavage.com is the website. We have the sneakers. We have the toupees. We have the shoes. What else do people sell on radio? They have all sorts of items, like special mats they have with their name on them. I actually don't sell anything. Once in a while when a book comes out. I have Scorched Earth coming out for Labor Day. It's my last blockbuster, period, on the story, the last nonfiction. Restoring America after Obama. It is the architectural plan for you to make certain that the Trump people, when they win, if God willing they win, do the right thing. I broke it all down in that book. It's my last book. It's my magnus opus. Scorched Earth. Never forget it. You can't order it yet. You want to talk about a weekend? Okay, here's my weekend. You imagine what people do, right? Oh, I listen to him. I wonder what he does on the weekend. He must be on a boat, having a vodka with the dog. No, here was my weekend. From 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday until 8 o'clock at night, and then on Sunday from 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, I went through 71,000 words of Scorched Earth one more time on a Word, like when you're editing, you put it up on Word. I went through every word. I'm not complaining. That's what I do. And I had to take breaks every hour or so to look at the bay to keep my eyes from blurring any even further. Okay, I'm satisfied to say it's a great book. I'm very happy with it. But the point is, that's what I did for this weekend. I was so burned I felt empty, not burned out. You know how an artist feels after they've done something good? The word is you feel empty. If you do the right work, if you're a creative type, you feel empty after you're through. I didn't feel tired. I felt empty. It's a little different. It's much different than feeling tired or depressed or burned out. I was empty. I emptied myself out because I was working for 2 straight days. Then made a homemade dinner, watched Ray Donovan, and the rest was a smoke detector story till 12:30. That was something, that smoke detector story. It is a funny story unto itself. It is a little funny anecdote, you know what I'm saying? Of a guy who can't sleep from a chirping smoke detector, but he pulls the thing off and it's still chirping. She rips them all out of the ceiling and there's still a chirping sound, a very dim. And he doesn't know what it is. Then he starts to think he's going nuts. He said, wait a minute, I ripped out the 3 smoke detectors in my bedroom and around it, and it's still, you think I said, wait a minute, maybe it's not a smoke detector. So I said, wait a minute, maybe a cricket got in under my bed. And I started to listen. No, it's a sequential beep on a regular basis, and so it couldn't be a cricket. That's number one. That's the way. It's logically impossible if I rip out the smoke detectors for it still to be beeping. So I said, I'm going to go to sleep anyway. But you ever try to sleep when you try not to listen to something? You know how that works? Oh, it's not going to bother me. No, don't worry. Okay, 12:30, covers off, lights on, dog disturbed, step ladder, rip another one out of the ceiling. I had to move into another bedroom and lock the doors. That took an hour adjustment. Then the garden lights were still on it at 1 o'clock. I had to get up again with a flashlight and go around to the timer. For some reason it was on. I had to turn them off. But the funny thing is that if you don't panic over that, what you remember, I'm going to tell you a little story about insomnia. Never ever worry about insomnia. Whatever you do, don't drug yourself. Many years ago, I'm talking 3 decades ago, I went through a very bad period before radio that no matter what I had done, the society was so twisted against white males who were exceptional, I couldn't get a teaching position. They were only hiring people who had almost no qualifications or illegal immigrants. And I had young children. It was a very bad time for me because that's what was my chosen profession. So I remember I was up very late at night and couldn't sleep. I had very bad insomnia. Well, I tried everything. I got passion flower herbal tea, which worked, by the way, the greatest stuff in the world. But I read a book which said, don't worry about insomnia. Most people don't need as much sleep as they think they need, which we don't need, incidentally. We get to thinking we need, but now think about warriors who go out on missions and don't sleep for 3 days. How do they do it? Sure, they're pushing themselves, but they don't need to sleep, do they? You don't really need it. And it's like when you get up at 5 in the morning, instead of laying in bed and thrashing till you actually have to get up, you know what the answer is? Get out of bed. Get out of bed and do something. Walk around the block, unless you live in Ferguson, Missouri. Let's say you live in a state. Do anything. Walk around the block, write some emails to some friends, whatever. If you'll just get out of bed, you'll be better off, because when you lay in bed, your mind starts to turn on you. Every little thing becomes a big thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's what got me through. It's like big deal. So I'm not going to sleep at exactly the time I go to sleep. Big deal. So in other words, what's insomnia? Your mind is working on some other things. So work on them. You know what I'm saying? Work on them. It's if you have other things to work, or go out on your, wherever you are, look at the stars. Learn to appreciate the stars. You know, there are still stars out there. Obama's not the sun, the moon, and the stars. Do you realize that there's actually a universe beyond him? So you look at the stars and you study astronomy and you start to wonder again, like the ancients did, about your place in the universe, how small you are, yet how big you are. You know, I love we hear that man is just a grain of sand. how small we are. Do you really believe that? You really believe you're just a grain of sand? I don't believe that. We're not just a grain of sand. All living things are much more than just a grain of sand. Okay? Believe me, that's part of this mythology that we're nothing. We're quite something, by the way. Well, I'm rambling right now because I don't want to get to the news. I don't want to get to the news. It's so awful out there. I'll leave it to someone else to get you excited over it. Let me take some calls. Let's go to my home station of KSFO in San Francisco, where I started. Sheldon on KSFO. Welcome to the National Savage Radio Show.
Hi, Mr. Savage. I want to congratulate you on your win. I voted for you when you gave information a couple of weeks ago about how to vote for you. I voted for you. I wanted to congratulate you.
Well, let me tell you something. I appreciate it. It's every vote that counted. People don't understand this was a popular vote. It was not done by the 400 radio insiders who pick who they want to pick. They've done it different ways over different years. In this category of talkers or the spoken word, of the 4 people, everybody was telling their listeners or their listeners to vote for them. I wasn't the only one. One of them even went so far as to produce a YouTube video showing people how to vote. So I want to thank you for voting for me. Every vote counted. And I don't know the numbers. I'll never find out the numbers, but I do appreciate it. I'm going to take calls from around the country. East, west, north, south. The news is horrible. In California, Obama's gun conspiracy becoming very real. Obamacare has city hospitals drowning in red ink. North Korea test fires submarine-launched ballistic missile. Dallas cop killer unmasked as a stalking pervert. The Ferguson effect is destroying Chicago. Motorist appears to punch off-duty cop before fatal shooting. Mayor de Blasio and wife defend Black Lives Matter. Good for you, Mayor de Blasio. Wonderful guy you are. You're the one who started the attack on police, you rotten thing, you. New study shows no bias in police shootings. ISIS punishes escapees in the most gruesome ways imaginable. Stop the coming civil war. Facebook sued for $1 billion for alleged use of medium for terror. Savage Audio, black attacks like Manson's Helter Skelter. Michael Savage wins National Radio Hall of Fame Award. I'm reading headlines from my little website, michaelsavage.com. And then, of course, there's a picture of Teddy and me with a loaded shotgun in bed from Teddy and me. And it's not just a dog book. I mean, there's a little politics in there. See Teddy staring at the gun. He was like really freaked out. Publisher didn't want it in the book. It was supposed to be like a nice book. The problem here is I look a little bit like Hemingway, and I don't like the association in that I look a little bit like Hemingway with a loaded shotgun in bed. That part, there's something eerie about it that I could... I mean, the irony of it is, believe me, the irony I didn't miss of this particular picture. Maybe I should sell my pajamas on eBay and raise them for charity. I'm not ready to sell anything on eBay. I don't need the money, and I don't think I want to sell anything right now. But look at the dog staring at the shotgun. Dogs, dogs are afraid of guns. Did you know that? They're very much like liberals. They're gunophobes. They are. Dogs are very much like liberals. And I don't mean a gun that goes off. They even look at a gun that's not been shot. They're afraid of it. They know inherently what it is. Yes, a gun is not a toy. A gun is made for one thing only, killing people. Did you know that? Killing things. Did you know that's what a gun was made for? I don't think you know that. I remember when I was a young kid, I was fascinated by guns. It goes back to the Lone Ranger that I played at the beginning of the show. Remember that Lone Ranger piece? Robert, play it for a minute. You're going to hear some guns in it for a minute. This is how I got into radio. I was a little kid, and I used to listen to this on the radio, and I'd imagine he had guns. It sounded like cap guns. Listen carefully. I love this. So my mother got me a cowboy outfit with the hat. Imagine a little kid in the Bronx with a cowboy outfit. You guys in Texas are laughing at that one. And 2 cap guns, and we lived in this little apartment. And anyone who came to the door, I'd pull out the cap guns. My mother would open it, and I would shoot them with the cap guns. Kids are so funny. But I remember playing with guns, and I was fascinated by guns. I really didn't understand that they were for killing. And I remember going into my father's store, and there was this old beatnik who had a stall across from him. His name was Monk. Everyone else was a normal, guy who ran a store. This guy was the old West Village beatnik before there were, hipsters. Let's say he tied his pants with a rope. He was, that kind of guy. He had a big beer belly. He wore an undershirt. He wouldn't wear a shirt. If you'd come in and he wouldn't put his merchandise out in any orderly fashion. He would throw it all out in any way it came in and make people rifle through it. He used to like to watch them rifling through thinking they were going to trick him. I remember this doctors used to come in one particular, he liked to get over on them, so they'd rifle through all the junk he would throw out. He had jewelry mixed in, whatever, and they picked something out thinking he was an idiot and didn't know what it was, and they'd say, "Oh, hi, Monk, how much is this?" They thought he didn't know it was gold that he threw in with the junk. And he said, let me see. He'd take it from, get out of here, he'd say, "It's not for sale." And he forced them out of the store. He did it just to play with people's heads. So this guy was an iconoclast, and he was married. They weren't married, but he had a live-in wife. I forget her name, but she wore, like, tight jeans before any woman in the world ever wore them. She wore them before Marilyn Monroe wore them, okay? And she had long blonde hair, and she was this, very weird woman in that time. No makeup, straight talker. I never met anyone like her. So I remember that I used to always ask Monk for guns because they get merchandise from everywhere. I'd say, Monk, do you have any guns? Do you have any guns? I was 8 years old. And he looked at me and he scowled at me and he scolded me and he said, "Guns are only for killing. Get away from me." Well, it didn't stop me from being fascinated by guns, but that's where he was at. Then years later, in my teens, when I'd be downstairs cleaning the bronzer with the cyanide solution, I'll tell you that story another day. I was already 14, 15. My father still had me as slave labor in the basement. It was cheaper than a Bowery bum. After all, if you have a kid, you may as well put him to use. If you're feeding him, why not put him to work, right? Actually, he was right, because otherwise you would go bad earlier. But the thing is, I was growing my hair, and I was combing it in a ducktail and using some kind of grease on it, trying to look cool, with the undershirt and the hair, because I'm down there in the basement cleaning, and I'm dying for the day to be over, so I go out with my friends, go out with girls, dancing, whatever. So Frances, that's right, that was Monk's lady, comes down, and she sees me with the ducktail haircut, and she sees me looking at myself in the mirror for one quick second in between cleaning the dirty statues I was cleaning, and she says to me, I think she had an English accent, she looks at me and she says, "What are you trying to be, a teddy boy?" And I thought she meant gay. I didn't know what teddy boy was. I had no idea. I turned red. I thought that she meant I looked, you know what I'm saying? She said, "What are you trying to be, a teddy boy?" I thought, I had no idea what she was talking. Teddy boy was a different thing in England in those days. But they drive on the right side of the road, left side of the road. What do they know? I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hey, our Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust for wealth insurance, gold and silver. Call 800-BUYCOIN. Come to the end of the second hour of this celebratory program on the Savage Nation. I want to quote one of my favorite authors, someone who inspired me since I first read him when I was 18, Eugene O'Neill, who wrote, "Success is a stale finale. The struggle is the success." That's impelled me my whole life. Success is a stale finale. The struggle is the success. But the quote itself was much longer than that. In 1922, he told an interviewer, "Achievement in the narrow sense of possession is a stale finale. The dreams that can be completely realized are not worth dreaming. Man wills his own defeat when he pursues the unattainable, but his struggle is his success." And he was talking about the spiritual significance which life attains when a man aims high enough. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I love this line. Man wills his own defeat when he pursues the unattainable, but the unattainable must be pursued. And that's something to remember in a time of such debasement in American culture, when you have so many millions of useless players on the stage, people who have no good to the world or to themselves, who are rioting and demanding things that they're not entitled to. It's very difficult to get up every morning and achieve excellence in any sphere. But it's the unattainable that you must keep striving for. Success, remember, is a stale finale. What is that? You just want to retire and play golf? I don't think that that's worth living for, do you? But maybe if that's what people want, I'm not going to look down upon them. It's just not the way I'm wired. Anyway, these first 2 hours have been very good for me. It's all about the award in radio, and now we play a song that's very fitting for right now called My Way by Frank Sinatra.
Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
All right, you get the picture. I get the picture. I get the picture. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Today has been a day of somewhat of a celebration for me for having been nominated. I won the prize, okay, and I'm boasting about it. For if I am not for myself, who will be? No one else in the media is going to do it, so it's that simple. Yes, I wanted to win it. Yes, it's the capstone of my career. Yes, I beat someone who I'm in a direct competition with on many big stations. And he has many years to go in this business. He'll win one day, that's all. He should take some credit for the fact that he's got a lot of time left in the medium, and he'll win one day, that's all. Now, the fact of the matter is the news out there is so horrible that I've been trying to avoid it, but it's almost impossible. As you well know, Obama has stirred up hatred in this country to a level never before seen, not since Reconstruction. I would say this goes beyond. What he has done has gone beyond the unrest of the 60s, because this is specifically a racial unrest that he has himself, with his handymen and handywomen, created. He made this happen, and now it's happening. Police are being killed all over the country. We know that they're inspired by militant groups, Communist Party USA and others. You could probably trace it if you needed to. If we had a Department of Homeland Security that wasn't part of the problem, they would have stopped this before it started. Now we read that the so-called new Black Panthers seek their own government. Look at the top of the Drudge Report. Nation within a nation. Agencies on edge. Detroit police arrest 4 for threats. Kill all white cops. Officer who called activist terrorist demoted. Black Lives Matter supporter killed after breaking into cop's home over Facebook argument. Arrested leader earns 6-figure salary from Baltimore school system. Oh, that's a joke. I guess he got his advice from Al Sharpton or Jesse I. Jackson. My friends, there's a revolution going on right in front of your eyes. It was fomented by the community organizer who got where he is through fomenting social unrest. Do you understand that? And if you think this is going to end soon, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't. I don't believe so. I believe it's going to get much, much worse, especially this coming week at the Republican convention. I think they're going to unleash the mobs onto the Republican convention to try to upset it. And, of course, if we had a DHS that was sincerely a DHS, they wouldn't permit this to happen. Now, it's in the state of Ohio, which, as you well know, was picked probably by John Boehner for financial reasons. There's no reason on earth to bring the Republican convention into enemy territory, but that's what they did. Why would you bring a Republican convention to a downtown inner city where there is unrest to begin with, unless you wanted the Republican convention to be destroyed, right? So that's John Boehner's handiwork. He picked Cleveland, right? Now, it doesn't belong there. It belongs in a locked community somewhere where the rabble cannot get in and disrupt it. So that's number one. Number two, it's the beginning of a long, long, hot summer. And the agitator-in-chief is probably smiling. I don't know where he is. He's still eating the kielbasa somewhere over there in Poland. He hasn't come home from his summer trip yet. He didn't want to end it too soon. He's surrounded by his EU buds and gals who love him so much. You cannot believe what he said over the weekend after the cops were killed. You cannot believe it. He attacked the police again. And then he lied about his own legacy. Either he's delusional or he's what we think he is, a combination of delusional and psychopathic as a liar. Listen to clip 4 in the fact when he distorts the reality of the world we're living in. Listen to 4.
When we start suggesting that somehow there's this enormous polarization and we're back to the situation in the 60s, and that's just not true. You're not seeing riots, and you're not seeing police going after people who are protesting peacefully.
What?
You've seen almost uniformly peaceful protests, and you've seen
the 5 cops
uniformly police.
Shut up. I can't take it. The man is a liar. He's a pathological liar. Either he doesn't know reality or he's distorting reality for his own ego. There's no answer to the question that I can give you. This is in Poland after the police were killed. And then he goes into the shooter who killed the police, and he goes into the motives. They're making him already a lone gunman, lone wolf, madman, blah, 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 blah. Then someone asks him about his legacy, which I thought was very interesting. And all of a sudden, you see him waxing eloquently in clip number 8.
I do want to leave legacy questions to the history books. But what I can do, maybe this is a fair response to your question, is to say how I've tried to lead the country on this issue. More than anything, what I hope is that that my voice has tried to get all of us as Americans to understand the difficult legacy of race, to encourage people to listen to each other, to recognize that the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow and discrimination didn't suddenly vanish with the passage of the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act or the election of Barack Obama.
Please stop him. Stop it. I'm a human being. I can only take so much of a pathological liar. Here is a man who has African heritage on his father's side, and he doesn't stop with the Jim Crow and the slavery and discrimination. Again, he doesn't stop. Again, he steams up the mobs. Again, he gives them a signal. Again, he gives them the green light to go out and riot. Again, he gives them the right to go out and do whatever they want. Here he is, the President of the United States, the Attorney General, a totally unqualified, nobody lawyer, not known for anything. Can you name one decision that Loretta Lynch wrote, any legal decision she wrote that will ever be remembered in the annals of the law? None. She's a total nonentity. Nothing. She's a nobody as a lawyer who was just pushed up, and she's now Attorney General. And we have to sit and listen to this propaganda, there's no other word for it, of slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination. I lived through the 60s, and I got to tell you, I've never seen such racial division in my whole life, ever. Never. It's never been this bad. Never has it been this bad in my lifetime, and I've been around quite a while in this country. I've seen a lot. I'm not old man time, but anyone looking around who's objective knows that this man has destroyed race relations and set them back not 50, but maybe more than 50 years. And here he is in Poland, surrounded by his EU, one world girls, guys, and dolls, the people who love each other so much, sinking the entire West like the Titanic, sinking it purposely, and telling us that things have never been better and that his legacy will be such of bringing people together. And again, attacking the police after 5 police lay dead. And then we have Jeh Johnson, Department of Homeland Security, a man who was never, ever qualified for this job. Again, handpicked for reasons you can only understand. A man who has done nothing to stop Orlando, to stop the shootings before that in San Bernardino. The man should have been fired at that time. But he stays in his job like the civil servant that he is, the loyal civil servant that he is, the very loyal to Obama civil servant that he is. And he has the nerve, this spoiled, rich this spoiled, very wealthy Wall Street lawyer who has never, ever wanted for anything in his entire life. I want you to listen to clip 12. You're not going to believe this one.
I've obviously got some experience with this as a parent and as somebody who's been around. I'm 59 years old now, and I've had my share of unpleasant encounters with law enforcement when I was much younger. You
believe this?
You know, the type of road encounters that others have talked about.
This is what I'm talking about. Racist through and through, all of them. All of them are race baiters. Every last one of them in this administration is the type of individual who has caused the riots that we're seeing right now. Instead of cooling things off, he raises the temperature and makes the pot boil even further. Jeh Johnson has had unpleasant experiences when he was young. I guess he was down with the people. He was never like that. He was always from the upper middle classes. His grandfather was a very distinguished individual. He comes from a fairly well-off and by the way, very prominent family who would be very ashamed of what this man is doing in his power today. And yet he too has to chime in on the unpleasant experiences with the police. Hey, Jeh Johnson, this is one man to another, and I'm a little older than you. I'm a white kid. And let me tell you something, I've had some rather unpleasant experiences with the law as well. but it had nothing to do with my race. Do you understand that, Jay? But when you see everything through a racial lens, you make everything about race. It had nothing to do with race in my case. It had to do with a misperception of my particular behavior. It had nothing to do with race whatsoever. Moreover, Mr. Johnson, the French themselves have a saying about the law, and that is that you should respect the law, Mr. Johnson, not spit on it and challenge it. Because without law, there is no order. And without law and order, Jay, even you will find that your country is not safe. Not safe at all. Be careful as you sow the wind, Mr. Johnson, because you shall reap the whirlwind. Loose lips sink ships. I'll be back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Your Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust for tangible assets, gold and silver. Call 800-BUI-COIN. So if you think that this group, BLM, is functioning on its own, I have another little bit of information for you. There's a man named Ron Arnold who follows the left more completely than anyone I know. And he put out a network, a list, a diagram of the American race-related left and its funders. I'm going to read you their names to show you that BLM is part of this gigantic communist conspiracy to overthrow the social order and replace it with hell itself. Social network diagram of the American race-related left and its major funders. At the center of it is the Ford Foundation. Next to the center of the funding is George Soros' so-called Open Society Institute. Next to that is the Carnegie Corporation, another left-wing funding group. And next to them is the Rockefeller Foundation. All of them are fomenting revolution in the United States of America. And they give money, too. I'm going to read the groups. Congress of National Black Churches, Inc., National Council of Negro Women, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, American Bar Association, American so-called Civil Liberties Union, Lawyers Committee for Human Rights, Human Rights Watch, Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, National Urban League, Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, International Human Rights Law Group, National Council of La Raza, Asian Pacific American Legal Center of Southern California, Institute on Race and Poverty, University of Minnesota Law School, Trans-Africa Forum, National Asian Pacific American Legal Consortium, Native American Rights Fund, NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Center for Human Rights. You see this? Want me to go on? Southern Center for Human Rights, Arab American Institute. See how they're all interconnected? Now Legal Defense and Education Fund, National Partnership for Women and Families, Physicians for Human Rights, Interdenominational Theological Center, Southern Education Foundation. He lists these as the American race-related left and its funders. That's Ron Arnold's left tracking library. My friends, all of this and more will be in my forthcoming book in other ways, in Scorched Earth. But let's forget the book for a minute. We are in the throes of a revolution. I wrote a book called Stop the Coming Civil War 2 years ago. Many of you got the message. Many of you sneered at the message. Most of you ignored the message and went about your business. I don't blame you. I try to go about my business as well, the business of winning the award today, the business of celebrating the capstone of my radio career. But the news is coming through on a level of a megaphone. And when I play the sound of Obama and Jay Johnson, you hear them throwing lighter fluid on the embers. You hear Obama in the middle signaling to the mobs to continue their rioting. You hear Loretta Lynch after the cops were shot. Within 3 breaths of her false tears, her crocodile tears for the dead police, she told the Black Lives Matter rioters, don't give up the fight. So which side are they really on? I think you can pretty much figure out what side they're really on. If you care to comment on this or my celebration, go ahead. KLIF, Chuck. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind, Chuck?
Hi, good afternoon, Michael. Let me first say congratulations on your acceptance into the Hall of Fame. And let me also just state a couple other things. The way that you articulate and you describe for us to give us a picture of just a very intelligent view, if I may say so, of just what is going on in our government, just the Oval Office. Along the fact that you're a national treasure is just the unspoken truth. Michael, I can't say how much I appreciate you being on the radio.
How can I disagree with you? I can't disagree with you, and I can't agree with you. All I can say is, as someone who voted for me, one of many hundreds of thousands, all I can say is thank you very much, and thank you for being a loyal listener. It's what builds the show. It's what makes it possible. But, I just read you a list of the interconnectedness between these left-wing groups. Some of them have such benign-sounding names, doesn't it? Human rights, church, this fund, poverty, you know what it is. All funded by Soros, Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Foundation. You ask yourself, why are they funding a revolution in America? What's the end game? What do they want? You see, I think if you lose the scope, what is it that they really want? Do they know what they want? Yes, they know what they want. It was stated very clearly in the 60s by the Vermin. Bring it all down, man. Well, now they're running the world, and they've brought it all down, girl. The only thing is you haven't seen the buildings fall yet. You haven't seen them fall yet with the dust rising. And who do you think will be caught in that collapse? You think they're going to be immune?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
So, you want to see how the game is played? We know Jesse I. Jackson has rewarded himself richly for his civil rights work. We know another one uses the civil rights racket to make personal gain, Sharpton. Most of these people in the civil rights business make very good money. And that includes these with the so-called BLM movement. There's a guy, whatever his name is, I don't know his name, but he was arrested recently. Do you know that he earns an over six-figure salary? DeRay McKesson, so-called activist. He ran for the mayor of Baltimore after the city burned. That was, I guess, his CV included that. Well, he was one of those arrested at the Baton Rouge protest for blocking a highway. That's how he earns his creds, you see, by doing bad things. Do bad things, and I guess it's a badge of honor. But you can't really get hurt doing that. So it's like a fake arrest, not a real one. So DeRay McKesson, the prominent civil rights activist, says the Baltimore Sun. That's an oxymoron. He's actually the interim chief human capital officer, whatever that means, for Baltimore's public school system. Can you believe what kind of money is involved in that kind of thing? What kind of money goes through this guy's hands? But that's not good enough for him, you see. No, he needs much more than that. So he goes out with the rioters and he gets himself a little arrest, comes back preening about how, down with the people. But take a look at how much money these people make through their so-called civil rights work. Nothing new under the sun is there. Let's take some calls on the program today. So much more I wanted to talk about. Obama plans more nuclear disarmament in the final days. I told you, watch out. Dallas police chief says we're asking cops to do too much in this country. That's actually the best speech of the day. It's clip one. Hold on. After the cops were killed by this, let me categorize him properly. Well, he's not a member of Black Lives Matter. You know that. They're all peaceful. They're all peaceful. He was a deranged gunman, panty sniffer. Just a deranged panty sniffer. We don't know his motive. Obama said he didn't know the motive of the Orlando shooter, even though he screamed Allah Akbar. No one knows the motives. They never know the motive. All deranged, lone wolves. Yeah, no connection to any groups. No, all on their own. They get it in their heads out of the atmosphere itself. So the Dallas police are in real trouble. Listen to clip number one. Here's the police chief right now on the Savage Nation.
We're asking cops to do too much in this country. We are. We're just asking us to do too much. Every societal failure, we put it off on the cops to solve. Not enough mental health funding. Let the cop handle it. Not enough drug addiction funding. Let's give it to the cops. Here in Dallas, we got a loose dog problem. Let's have the cops chase loose dogs. Schools fail. Give it to the cops. 70% of the African community is being raised by single women. let's give it to the cops to solve that as well. That's too much to ask. Policing was never meant to solve all those problems. And I just ask for other parts of our democracy, along with the free press, to help us and not put that burden all on law enforcement to resolve.
He's a smart man. Smart man, Dallas Police Chief. 100% right. He's asking the media to help him. Are you kidding? Their ratings go up when people die. You're asking those louts on MSNBC to stop fanning the flames of racism and hatred when they're high-fiving each other every time another cop gets shot by one of these rioting pieces of garbage? No, we need much more than asking them. I tried not to blow it, and I haven't yet, but I'm very close. Let's go to the callers. D on WMAL line 4 from Washington, D.C. Go ahead, D. What's on your mind?
Yes, Dr. Savage, I just called to say congratulations. You deserve it. You've definitely earned it. And you'll leave with us an incredible legacy with your empowering messages and your incredible insight as to how we can save our nation from ruin right now. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I think also that you acknowledged the other nominees very nicely, and it speaks a lot as to your character. So,
you know, the fact is I did. I mean, I did, and I didn't hear one, email from him saying, anything, nothing. He could have stepped up to the plate and been a big man. I said right then and there, I took my hat off to him. I won, he lost. In every battle, there has to be a winner and a loser, doesn't there, in a competition? But I learned from sports figures who still have dignity. I watched boxing matches where people fight with each other, really to knock the other guy out, pretty bad. And then when the fight is over, they hug each other. That's sportsmanship. I learned that when I was young. It's a shame that others in talk radio don't know about sportsmanship. I thank you for that call. No, I'm glad you noticed it. I said it very nice. Savage complimented H. I admire the strength of his convictions and his message and how hard he works, TV and radio. I don't know how he does it, Savage said. Noting he's more than 20 years older than Hannity, Savage said Hannity and others in the talk radio industry, quote, who don't even like my politics should take their hat off to me. They should say, you know what, this guy's an inspiration to all of us for what he's overcome. It should inspire all of us to keep fighting for what they believe in. It's that simple. They don't have to like me or my politics to admire my immigrant drive. But no, nobody. Yes, within the media, sure. But the competitors, no. They'll win eventually. They have plenty of time left. And for me, this is it, because there's no, I don't want to go into the Orson Welles, Remember that great line? Robert, do you have that tape? One of my friends once did it to me at dinner recently. I got shocked. He did it about himself. Remember where she says your future is all... Marlena Dietrich, it's in A Touch of Evil, the great Orson Welles movie, where he's playing a detective, that heavy-set detective in that border town of Texas, and he goes to the card reader, who's played by Marlena Dietrich, and he says to her, tell me my fortune. And she turns a card over, and she says to him, your future is all used up. And he says, what? You remember that, how great it was? Now, you talk about a great actor with one word where he goes, what? Just the way he said that. That's greatness. That's greatness. The small gesture, the use of a word, that's greatness. That's greatness in acting. It's greatness in speaking. Less is more in that regard. We don't have it as I'm ad-libbing? No. We'll find it. It's a good one. We'll find it for tomorrow. Orson Welles is one of my heroes, but so is Walter Winchell. You talk about another influence on me. Many of you don't know who he was. He had this great once-a-week radio show. And, I mean, we sat captivated listening to it. The teletype was clicking in the background. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. Let's go to press. Remember that? That was an amazing thing, how it excited America. We'd hang on every word. Get that opening, Robert, for when we come back. I got to play that one before this day is out, because I'm not going to do this again tomorrow. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. Now let's go to press. And then we'd listen to his news. Once a week for about, an hour, half an hour, he held America in the palm of his hands. You know what I'm saying? This long format in talk radio is a rather new phenomenon. I never told you where it derives from. It's actually an anomaly. It's very unusual to expect a person to sustain this kind of concentration for 3 hours. It's almost inhuman, by the way. Yeah, if you spin records, fine. Or you're doing sports. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not the same. You watch a game and you talk about it. But to have a long format 3-hour talk radio show it's a new phenomenon. And it's an unnatural one, by the way, at that. It's a very unnatural period of time. The natural format for talk radio should be no more than an hour, incidentally. I'm not saying that's what I want to do. I'm just saying most people in business acknowledge that. They're very good and fresh for a good hour. But the fact of the matter is this 3-hour thing, or 4 hours, derives from a time block that came out of the earlier days in radio when those time slots were all music. And all you had were disc jockeys playing records. So to sit for 3-4 hours and spin a record is one thing. But to sit and be focused on the world day in and day out and have a message day in and day out and keep an audience interested day in and day out and keep yourself and them interested day in and day out is an unbelievable demand on a human being. How I've survived all these years is a miracle altogether. And let's just stop right there. No, it's a miracle. The whole thing's a miracle. But that's it. Sheriff deputies killed in Michigan courthouse shooting. That's another one now. Another one. Who's the perpetrator? They don't show him yet? They shown the perp? Let's see. Let's see if the picture came up yet. Sheriff's deputies killed in Michigan courthouse shooting. No, they won't show the perp. It'll come up at midnight tonight. Shot and killed. This is in Michigan now. Who was the shooter? We don't know. Move on. Nothing to see here. Let's go down the list of those we're sure were not the shooter. Let's see. A white Christian nun. You can pretty much say the shooter was not a white Christian nun. A Hasidic rabbi. We're pretty much sure it wasn't. Catholic priest. Pretty sure it wasn't. Let's go down the list and then narrow it. Make it a short list of those you think could be the shooter because that's all your mind is thinking about. But don't expect to see it too soon. It won't fit the narrative that's currently trending on MSNBC and CNN. That's all. One man's voice, one man's opinion. Peter Petrie on KSFO, line 6. Welcome to the program.
Legends of radio, Michael. That's it. You are a legend in radio. And you brought up Orson Welles, and that's my topic, is Orson Welles in the heyday of radio, before television, when everyone was glued to radio, that Orson Welles was a legend. And I liken you to Orson Welles during his radio times. I mean, what you do on radio is so entertaining, it's so gripping, it pulls you in, it sucks you in, you're hanging on every word, and then the ads come on and you got to bear through that, but then you come back for more, and you know, you're not fooling the nation with what you provide to us, but you do it all. And that's why you're a legend in radio, just like Orson Welles. I mean, do you appreciate that?
Well, Welles is one of my heroes. If you go onto the National Radio Hall of Fame website and you look at prior recipients, some of them are giants and some of them are midgets in fields. I mean, when you consider Howard Stern is in there, what does that tell you? You know, would you put him in the league with Orson Welles? Would you put him in the league with people like Walter Winchell? No. A balloon man. All he do is talk about lesbians and brassieres and panties. But because he made a lot of money for a lot of people, they put him in. I'm going to tell you something interesting about that Stern thing. I was told, let us say I learned, that he was nominated 3 times and didn't win. His own listeners didn't elect him. Did you know that? He also was subjected to the listener write-in, as far as I know. I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. And he lost 3 times in a row. His listeners didn't nominate him. Other people won. But then the industry itself, another year, changed the rules again and made it so only the 400 industry insiders, and they elected him and put him in there. Okay. Now, in my case, the only reason I won is because it was open to the listeners. If this category of the spoken word was open to only the 400 radio insiders, which it was when I last ran, I wouldn't have won. They wouldn't have nominated me. I know that. It's all politics at that point. It's like Congress. So I can't lobby them. I don't know the industry. So when it's put to the listeners themselves, which is the basis of all of radio, I won by a land mile, incidentally. Thank you for the goal. Now, here's a shock that I'm almost afraid to read to you. It's beyond belief shocking. I didn't think this would come up. I'm glad I'm on the air right now. Now, I just played for you the Dallas police chief, where he says we're asking cops to do too much in this country, and I said he's a smart man. Again, I have to correct myself. Are you ready for what I'm about to read to you? Because you're not going to believe this. He invited rioters from Black Lives Matter to join the Dallas Police Department. This is right out of Mao Zedong's Khmer Rouge. Dallas's top cop urged young black men who fear the police to get off that protest line and become part of the solution. Dallas Police Chief David Brown said, "We're hiring." This is days after an ambush by an anti-white gunman in Dallas who killed five law enforcement. He said, "Become a part of the solution. Serve your communities. We're hiring. Get off that protest line and put an application in, and we'll put you in your neighborhood, and we'll help you resolve some of the problems you're protesting about." How do you like that? Wouldn't it be nice to give guns now and badges to Black Lives Matter? Isn't that the solution? Isn't that exactly what I told you might happen in my nightmare scenario, that Barack Obama would create a civilian national security force just as big, just as well-armed, just as well-funded as the military? And you've got 6 big months left to go. You have that speech for later, Robert? We'll have it. You have it now? No, we'll have it soon, in a minute, right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUICOIN. Here's a story to close with that just happened minutes ago here in the San Francisco area. Headline: 3 cops heard in South Bay arrest of indecent exposure suspect. That's the PC headline. Frank Marquez Jr. was masturbating in a play area of a McDonald's restaurant in Milpitas. This piece of garbage is doing this in front of babies. So the poor police are called. Now, in my day, they give him a beating you wouldn't remember. You'd never hear about. They take him in and give him a nightstick beating. He'd never touch himself again in front of children. I don't think he'd ever be able to touch himself again. But they can't today because of the vermin in the media. So they go to arrest this piece of twisted garbage for indecent exposure. And you know what he does? He tries to grab, it starts at 8:20 on June 23rd, when officers arrived at a McDonald's on Milpitas Boulevard. Reports of a man masturbating in the play area of a McDonald's. It's disgusting, but this is what cops put up with. You don't know the human refuse they have to touch. As police try to place Marquez under arrest, he hit an officer in the head and tried to remove another officer's pistol. He then struggles with several officers, including 3 who were treated for minor injuries. Now, why would they be treated for minor injuries? Because of the vermin in the police review boards, the vermin in the San Jose Mercury News, the Salenterates in the Chronicle, the Salenterates in the Oakland Tribune, the garbage on the television shows, always turning sick perverts into victims and always turning police into perpetrators. I accuse them of destroying this society. I accuse the media of killing those cops in Dallas. And something has to change, and it has to change fast, and it has to change from us. Well, thank you for listening and celebrating with me the National Radio Hall of Fame honor that I achieved and was announced today. It's on the Drudge Report and everywhere else. Good night.